Loving greetings to you and welcome. If you are joining us for the first time, I'd like to extend a special welcome to you. This channel, the Marriage Foundation channel, and what I'm teaching here is very different from what you'll find anywhere else. We hear that all the time, but I also know that because I used to be a divorce mediator. I wasn't a trained Western psychologist by any stretch. Over 22 years ago, I was a divorce mediator. And so the approach that we have to marriage is very different. We don't try to unravel things and we don't try to fix things. What we do at the Marriage Foundation is we teach people about marriage as a whole. What actually should you expect out of your marriage? What should you do to make your marriage deliver on your expectations? And we've nailed it down into a scientific process. I see marriage mechanically, cause and effect. So everything is scientific. It's process oriented, what we do, and what we have are courses for men. I've got books, I've got these articles, these videos, they're free, and the things that we have are very affordable because this is a nonprofit foundation. It wasn't my intention to do that when I created all this, but a fellow divorce mediator who used to be a Navy SEAL, ironically, said, "Paul, we've got to get this stuff out to the world." He's a very sincere guy. And so he gave me a check for $1,000 and we went down to the lawyers and started creating this nonprofit. We've been very successful so far, considering how different we are. And I hope that we will be able to get you as an individual to recognize what you have in your marriage, notwithstanding the complaint that you have that is bringing you to us. So the topic is, why does my wife think everything I do is wrong? So if I were a therapist, I would be looking into her psyche. I would be trying to understand it, and there'd be nothing in it that has to do with improving your marriage. Because really what you want is you want your marriage to be better than what it was yesterday. And you're fixated at the moment, that may be too strong a word, but you're focused now on her criticism of you and what you do. And sure, I'm sure you're not perfect. And her pointing this out to you is where she's not perfect. And you know what? It's okay. We don't have to be perfect in order to have an amazing marriage. You know what we have to have operating for us to have an amazing marriage is we have to have our attention, our focus on the reasons why we get married in the first place. You didn't get married so that you could be perfect in the eyes of your wife, and she didn't marry you because you're perfect. We all know that we're flawed. We get married because we want to be happy. That's the bottom line. And our expectation is that we will be happy together with our soulmate. Oh my God. You don't say that word in the world of Western psychology unless you mean it like you're a greeting card company. But I did a lot of research to get what we now have. And I can tell you, soulmate is dead on accurate. In fact, I've redefined marriage. Marriage is an individual spiritual path, meaning you're taking this with your soulmate. Do you get it? So we can't merge our minds, but we can merge our hearts. And we can connect our souls together. And she is your soulmate. And you are her soulmate. But what happens is we get caught up, and it's not your fault. It's not anyone's fault. We're not taught about marriage the correct way. So we get caught up in the mundane existence of life. What's right? What's wrong? Who's doing this? Why are they doing that? And our focus shifts from the original intent of happiness, and there's another reason we get married, and that is to experience marital love, also known as unconditional love. You see, we live in this crazy world that is horrible. Let's be honest. This world is not an easy place. It's very competitive, and people will resort to treachery in a heartbeat. They will nickel and dime you to death. If you get hit by a car, they'll come over, and one of them will be putting their coat under your head and the other one will be picking your pocket. It's that kind of world. But when we get married, we have this space. I call it the sacred space of marriage. It's beautiful when you know how to run your marriage. But we're not taught. And so what happens is we get into the doing this, doing that, observing this, observing that, rather than looking past that curtain of how we behave and going to the heart of why we got married and experiencing that connection that we're only able to have in our marriage. Think about that. Only in your marriage can you connect the way you can connect with your wife, but you've never learned. So for sure, even do it right now. Subscribe to this channel so you could learn more and go deeper. But let's talk more about this particular topic. Why does my wife think everything I do is wrong? Doesn't matter. You have free will. So if she's pointing out something that you're doing that is wrong, you have two positive possibilities of how you respond to that. One possibility is that you acknowledge her, recognizing that, okay, I'm doing this wrong, you're right, and let me work on that, but without a deep attachment to it, without taking it personally, without seeing it as an attack. And that's up to you because you have free will. So you don't have to see it as an attack, even if it is an attack. Even if it is an attack. And you recognize, as you're doing that, that there's something beneath that. And if I were a psychologist, I'd get into all that, but there's no need. The truth of the matter is, when you do the second part, you're going to help alleviate all the underneath stuff. And the second part is that you kind of ignore her corrections. You ignore what she's saying you do wrong. And you look at her and you say to her, my God, sometimes I'm just overwhelmed with your beauty. Sometimes it just blows my mind how beautiful you are. In other words, what you're doing is you're moving from this mundane communication. And by the way, in my books and in the courses, communication's a big deal. And you go to the higher level communication. The communication that's all about expressing your love. You see, one of the things that we don't do when we're married is we don't learn how to love unconditionally. And it's a requisite. You need to learn how to love your wife unconditionally. And if you love somebody unconditionally, you don't care if they're critical of you. It just doesn't make any difference to you because you love them. And so you're seeing them through different eyes. You're not seeing them like you're in a boxing ring. You're seeing them in an etheric way with love. Just like when you were first dating and courting. We're not taught this. Don't take this on. Instead, go, aha, I see what this guy is saying, and I agree with him. And then you start digging deeper and deeper into the concept. Because when I worked with my very first couple, I was, like I said, I was a divorce mediator, and this couple came to me and they said, we don't want a divorce, but we don't know what else to do, because divorce mediation is not like going to court. And they asked me, would you help us learn how to be married? As a communications expert, I thought, okay, maybe I can be of service. I talked to my Western psychological friends, the ones who did this all the time, and I said, how do you do this? And the answers they gave me didn't resonate. Now, at that time, this was early 2000, I had already been divorced for 4 years. And I believed in divorce. That's why I was a divorce mediator. And then they asked me to help them, so to serve them, I thought, okay, let me look into this. And the first question that finally came to my mind, because I didn't even have a starting point, after I talked to my therapist friends and they weren't useful to me, it just didn't resonate. You know what I mean? It didn't feel right. Then I finally asked a question, and I thought, oh my God, I should have asked this question before I got married, ages ago, 1975. And so I asked the question, I said, why do we get married? Why did I ask that question? Because you need to know why you're married, so you know what to do in the marriage to make the marriage deliver those things that you want from the marriage, right? I didn't have an answer to that question. I would ask people standing in line at Starbucks, ask my friends, my kids, ask a bunch of people. And people had great answers. I want to have a family. Yeah, but not everyone wants to have a family. Well, I want to be with someone all the time who I really love and appreciate. Yeah, but that's not very deep. I mean, it's cool, but it's not super deep. And I finally, I'll be honest with you, I meditated and I said, God, why? Why do people get married? And the answer came, because you want to be happy. That's true. It's a universally applicable answer. We want to be happy. And secondly, you want to experience love. And when God says love, he's not talking about I love my car kind of love. And I've had cars that I really love. I mean, I almost got into it. I loved my cars when I was a kid. I worked on them and all that. But that's a different kind of love. That's an emotional love. It's fleeting. But there's this deep love that when you feel it, it's overwhelming. And it's overwhelming because it's not in the mind. It is who we are, because we're souls. Remember, soulmates? We're souls. And we have a mind. And I realized that and I thought, whoa, this is deep stuff. And then I started getting into it sort of spiritually, and I thought, you know what, we're not our mind. We have a mind, but we are the soul, but we have a mind. And I thought, this is not what I learned. I learned that we have a soul. And then I said, well, who is it that we are, that we have a soul? No, that's incorrect. We're the soul. We have a mind and we have a body. And I thought, at that time, I had been already meditating for 30 years, and I thought, I should have known that. And so, how does this apply to marriage? Because we want to connect with our spouse on the plane of the soul, which transcends even thought. Well, where does sex come in? At the time, that was a very important question for me. Well, we're used by sex. We need to learn how to use sex, again, to communicate on this highest level of the soul. See, it gets really deep. And that's why when I started working with individuals and couples, I mean, I was making a lot of money as a divorce mediator, but I shifted because it was too critical, too important. And it's not enough to solve problems. It just isn't enough. Negotiation? Sure. That's what I did as a divorce mediator. Learning how to communicate in a way that is not going to go down real fast? Sure. But that's not why we get married. And so it's important to take this question of why does my wife think everything I do is wrong and put it aside and go, how do I make my marriage amazing? Because the potential now, after 22 years of doing this, I can tell you right now, the potential is off the charts. There are no charts. Sometimes I feel like Galileo, like I've discovered that our planet is not the center of the universe. And trust me, over the years I've gotten a lot of flack from some people. And I've also gotten a lot of people who are sincere therapists who are now taking our course to learn how to become a marriage foundation marriage counselor, which is a completely different approach. So I'm going on, taking up too much of your time. Look, I really appreciate you stopping by. If you have a question, you could submit it. We have a Ask a Counselor thing on our menu at our website. Our website is, we have a lot of stuff to offer you. A lot of it is free. A lot of it is affordable. Nothing is going to break the bank. You should utilize us because we're here for you. So I'm glad you stopped by. I hope you stop by again. I'm Paul Friedman. I founded the Marriage Foundation. And like the video, leave a comment if you wish. God bless you, and take care.